Senator Aldrich railroaded the Federal Reserve Act through both houses of Congress, and Wilson promptly signed it, and the Federal Reserve Act became law. That heinous act of treason was committed in December 23, 1913, 2 days before Christmas, when all the members of Congress, except for several carefully picked representatives and 3 equally carefully picked senators, were away from Washington.
All in favor, say aye.
They did this during Christmas vacation, where many senators were home celebrating the holidays with their families. And that's how the unconstitutional Federal Reserve Act came into being.
The Federal Reserve System gave the conspirators complete control of our money system, but it in no way touched the earnings of the people, because the Constitution positively forbids what is now known as the 20% withholding tax. But the Illuminati blueprint for one-world enslavement called for the confiscation of all private property and control of individual earning powers. This, and Karl Marx stressed that feature in his blueprint, had to be accomplished by a progressive graduated income tax. As I stated, such a tax could not lawfully be imposed upon the American people. It is succinctly and expressly forbidden by our Constitution. Thus, only an amendment to the Constitution could give the federal government such confiscatory powers. Well, that too was not an insurmountable problem for our Machiavellian plotters. The same elected leaders in both houses of Congress and the same Mr. Woodrow Wilson who signed the infamous Federal Reserve Act into law amended the Constitution to make the federal income tax, known as the 16th Amendment, a law of the land. Both are illegal under our Constitution. In short, the same traitors signed both betrayals, the Federal Reserve Act and the 16th Amendment, into law. However, it seems that nobody ever realized that the 16th Amendment was set up to rob, and I do mean rob, the people of their earnings via the income tax provision. The United Nations Charter was written by Alger Hiss, Oswalski, Dalton Trumbo, and other CFR stooges. A phony so-called UN conference was set up in San Francisco in 1945. All the so-called representatives of 50-odd nations gathered there, promptly signed the charter, and the despicable traitor Alger Hiss flew to Washington with it, elatedly submitted it to our Senate, and the Senate, elected by our people to safeguard our security, signed the charter without so much as reading it.
Congress had been evacuated because of the anthrax scare, and most of us were hanging around the lawn of the Capitol. We were really out of touch. Yet they felt some desire to rush this bill through.
Give us a weekend to read it, and let's take it up Monday morning. Hey, I'll come in and vote at 7 o'clock on Monday morning if it's urgent.
When the Patriot Act was first sent to the Congress by the Bush administration, it came with a request that we hold no hearings on it so that there would be no public input or public discourse.
That might have even been somewhat acceptable had it been the bill that was considered by and adopted unanimously by the committee, but it wasn't.
We came up with a draft of the bill that did have very, very broad support across the Judiciary Committee. Unfortunately, it was then changed in a last-minute draft before it came up on the floor.
Sometime very late in the evening after midnight, the John Ashcroft version, the Bush White House version, was substituted.
The bill was printed at 3:45 a.m. the morning before the vote on the House floor. You tell me how many of the 435 members of Congress had a chance between 3:45 a.m. and 11 a.m. to read a bill that was 345 pages long.
No member of Congress read this legislation before his vote on it. Not a one.
This is still warm. It just came off the Xerox machine. This isn't the bill. These are critical issues. This is what we're fighting for. These are our civil liberties.
How could Congress pass this Patriot Act without even reading it?
We don't read most of the bills.
The website newsbusters.org posting a November 2004 interview with Air America's Randy Rhoads, where Senator-elect Obama complains about the Bush administration.
When you rush these budgets that are a foot high, and nobody has any idea what's in them, and nobody's read them.
14 pounds it was.
Yeah, and it gets rushed through without any clear deliberation or debate. Then these kinds of things happen. And I think that this is, in some ways, what happened to the Patriot Act. I mean, you remember there was no real debate about that. It was so quick after 9/11 that it was introduced that people felt very intimidated by the administration.
I think I'm in an upside-down world here. Rushing through it, no time for debate, intimidated by the administration. Wow, that sounds familiar. Kind of like what we've been doing for the last 6 months. It's almost like he doesn't want anybody to read these bills.
And as president, I'm going to make it impossible for congressmen or lobbyists to slip pork barrel projects or corporate welfare into laws when no one's looking, because when I'm president, meetings where laws are written will be more open to the public, no more secrecy. That's a commitment I make to you. When there's a bill that ends up on my desk as president, you, the public, will have 5 days to look online and find out what's in it before I sign it.
They added 300 pages at 3:08 a.m. Not one person on the floor could say they read the entire 1,200-page plus bill. It's the Info Warrior with Jason Burmis. We're going to be back with Alex Jones.
Now, we knew the bill was 200-plus pages long. We read that one, total carbon tax, total takeover, control of farms, ranches, everything. And then they added 1,000 pages and then even more pages, and some pages were put in and some pages were pulled out. We were watching at 3:15, 3:30, 4 o'clock, and we had the video. And congressmen, mainly from Texas, but one after the other, would come up and say, "May I see the bill, please?" The speaker would say, "No, you may not." What was it like, turn your mic on, to just see congressmen saying, "Can I read the bill?" And they would say, "No. There's one copy in committee and you can't see it."
Yeah, it was crazy, man. I couldn't even believe what I was hearing. Can we read it? She said, no dice.
Now, that's how America rolls now. Just like Patriot Act, you couldn't read it. Now, 30 minutes before they're about to pass it, Bonner finally gets the 300 pages.
Here we are with 1,100 pages. 1,100 pages not one member of this body has read.
They think they can hide from this Congress and from the American people the fact that hundreds of billions of dollars are going to overseas investors. And there are transparency provisions in the bill on a lot of things.